102. We've all gotten that objection. And I, I started to think about it, and I thought, there's got to be a way that we can break this log jam of inventory. And how did this all come to be? And I want to share a little bit of history that may help to make some sense. It may open our eyes into an option solution for getting more listings, putting more inventory on the multiple listing. Let's go way back to 1947. The greatest generation comes home. They weren't called that then, but the greatest generation comes home from World War II, excuse me, with a bunch of money in their pockets. They hadn't been spending money. They'd been fighting a war, but they'd been building up cash in their monthly payments or their monthly paychecks. They come back with, they've got money in their pockets, they've got free college under the VA bill, they've got no down payment loans, the interest rates were low. So they went out and they bought cars, there was a building boom, mid-century modern, for example. Look at how many homes were built in that stretch from 1947 through, let's say, 1975. There was a ton of building going on. And that building, for the most part, kept pace with the amount of demand for the house, the number of buyers out there. It continued pretty level with some temporary spikes in the 1970s and 80s. Those people who returned from World War II had babies, lots of babies. They were called the baby boomers. I'm one of them. The peak of the baby boom was 1957. It was the second highest year ever recorded was in 2007 for the number of births in the United States. 1957 had more births than any other year. However, as baby boomers reached the home buying age, somewhere around 1970, we start to see the beginnings of the 1970s housing boom. It was very much like it was today. I was a new home buyer then, and I lost count how many homes I lost out on, just like buyers are today. Eventually, I decided to build my first home. Build it with, of course, the help of a contractor. My dad was a builder. And he thought I was nuts. He said, you don't build your first home. You buy one, you live in it a while, you find out what you like, then you trade up. Maybe you build then. I chose to do otherwise, which I usually did when it came to my dad's advice, but that's a different story. So, if you're working with buyers, maybe one option for you is to start working with builders. Get connected with builders who are going to pay you a commission. Stop chasing those multiple offer situations for existing existing listings on the multiple listing. Consider new construction. Talk with them. Learn what is necessary in new construction. And as I said, get connected with someone who will work with you and pay you, most importantly pay you, to bring them buyers. Let's go back to the history lesson. So the boomer market drove up the market and drove up prices in 1970s, 80s, but they also drove the population up. You see, because since 1975, the U.S. population has grown by more than 120 million people. That's nearly a 50% increase since 1975. Then in 2000, we saw housing prices begin to skyrocket, nearly doubling in a 5-year period, peaking at the end of 2005. Why? Because the children of baby boomers were beginning to enter the home buying market in droves. There was also something that happened, which is that we saw the bundling of bad loans, and that caused the crash of 2008. Those who had bought their homes at their peak values in 2004, 2005, found themselves underwater. Some bought their homes decades earlier and they saw their equity cut in half. Let's say the people who bought their house in 1975 or 80 had built up a lot of equity, but they saw their equity virtually cut in half at the time. As the years passed into the 20-teens, 2014, 2016, 18, so on, the pent-up demand from the Gen X generation, millennials, and the oldest portion of Gen Z began to explode. But the crash had crushed many builders. They went completely out of business. Big tract builders like U.S. Homes and Pulte went bankrupt and disappeared. Spec building stopped completely. Our faith in building to keep pace with population growth ended in those years, back in the 2012 to 2020 era, 2018. What's worse, the baby boomers pulled back. They had lost the equity they once had. They couldn't go through with their life plan to sell the homestead and downsize. They were stuck. Thus, no inventory of homes were available for this multi-generational glut of buyers that we see out purchasing houses right now. However, since 2012, most of those who were able to hang on to their homes have seen their equity increase, in fact, double or triple. They have retirement incomes. Their homes may be paid off or deep in equity. But now they're afraid to sell because they believe they will not be able to find something else. This holds true of the Gen X generation as well. They're in their 40s and 50s, and they may want to size up, but they can't find what they want. Again, one option is to take them to a builder, or get connected with a lender who does bridge loans. Let me rephrase that, because bridge loans has a bit of a negative connotation, which goes back some 30 years when we did bridge loans all the time. We called them portfolio loans. We called them interest-only equity loans. And right now there are products out there being offered by lenders which will charge interest on that portion of your equity, of the seller's equity, which they use to buy a new home. So right now there are thousands of potential sellers out there who can afford to buy what they want without selling their home by using a bridge loan, portfolio loan, equity forward loan, whatever you want to call it. For example, John and Mary raised their family in a 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath home in Granville. In 2008, they watched the value of their beloved home drop from $200,000 to $140,000. They still owe $100,000 on it. $40,000 wasn't going to get them the home, help them get the smaller home or condo they wanted without leaving them with a house payment. They were stuck. Their life plan wasn't working out. Guess what? They are still stuck. Not in financial reality, but in their own perception. They're not thinking of their options because they don't realize what their options are. Why? Because we're not telling them. We need to read the book upside down. Flip the script, if you will. The solution is there, but many don't see it because they're reading the book from the angle in which it was written. What do you normally do? You sell your house and you buy another one. Now, John and Mary's house rebounded in value over the last 12, 13 years. It's now worth $450,000. In the meanwhile, they've paid down their balance to, let's say, $75,000 just for fun. They have potentially $350,000 equity in their home. They could buy a nice retirement home or condo for $300,000 or $400,000 and keep their monthly payment at approximately what they are paying now. They know their home will sell. They've already told you that. They're afraid to put their house on the market because they're afraid it's going to sell and they won't know where to go. So, use that equity forward loan to buy first. Take them out and write a non-contingent offer. Get them pre-qualified, of course, under that equity loan program. But buy it non-contingent. That puts your buyer, eventual seller, that puts them in a stronger position to write an offer that will win them the house rather than making an offer that is contingent upon the sale of their house. If that doesn't work, go to a builder. Say, hey, this is what they want to build. Turn the playbook upside down and buy first, then sell their home after they have purchased through the use of an equity forward loan. Then get their listing secured through a delayed submission form and extend it for as long as you need to. So, get the listing. That's going to be inventory after you get them into a house and that purchase secured, so they have the security of knowing where they're going to go. The market today is different, and we need to think differently in order to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Those who become good enough at it will flourish. The key to the strategy is to focus on targeting sellers with heavy equity in their homes. Help them understand they don't need to be afraid to sell without a place to go, because we're going to find you a home first and then sell. And if they're still afraid of having a risk of 2 mortgages or even paying interest on the equity they are borrowing, consider listing with 60 days possession. Do you think you can find them a home? No, normally it's 30 days, 15 days, 30 days. It used to be 30 days all the time. But what about if we go out 60 days? We could even go out 90 days, although you'll find some lenders will not approve that in the process of purchasing. But it's an option to consider in heavy down payment conventional mortgages that they could get 90 days possession. Ask for possession to be no earlier than a specific date, August 1, for example, with the seller getting free rent and the seller paying rent for the remaining months, free rent for 30 days and then paying for the additional. Some lenders won't allow that, but we're seeing a lot of cash offers. It's worth a try. Right now, in addition, 5 Star is working with the number of various associations to take listings with the contingency of the seller finding suitable housing within a certain period of time. Right now, most associations don't allow that. They don't allow a listing to be put on the market that says this listing is subject to the seller finding suitable, securing suitable housing, and the seller may terminate this listing and or any subsequent offer if they are unable to secure suitable housing before the closing. Well, that makes sense because you're putting the buyer in the position of losing a bunch of money if the seller decides at the last minute that they haven't found the right house for them, and they yank the deal. So the associations are not allowing that kind of language, but we're trying, as 5-Star, we're trying to get the associations to give us some latitude that will allow sellers to have a little bit more flexibility in the manner in which they can list a property. That may help, but it still may be a ways off. Right now, finding those prospects that are deep in equity is your best chance to get out of the feeding frenzy with buyers. Oh, wait, you say. They're still buyers. I'm still going to be competing against other buyers if I use this strategy, aren't I? The answer is yes, but not exactly. Let's consider home sales, and the price from $200,000 to $250,000 is more than triple the number of homes in the 400,000 plus bracket. There are more than 560 new listings in the 500,000 plus category on Mishrick. That's the highest of any bracket at all. And the demand in that bracket is considerably less than it is in the other brackets. If you start to look at the number of properties sold versus the number of properties listed, there is more inventory in the 400 plus bracket than there is in the 200 to $300,000 bracket. My point is, go where the inventory is with buyers who can buy in those price ranges without needing to sell. Get their listing and sell that too. Refocus your energies, target your market. Say, okay, I'm gonna change where I've been looking, because where I'm looking is not giving me the results that I need, that I want, that is going to keep my family fed. Adapt, innovate, and overcome by going to a different market and focusing on those homes that have equity in them and that have buyers, sellers, who are buyers who need to buy something else, but they're afraid to put their house on the market, but they have the equity to go out and buy something without selling their home, and that gives them comfort and security that they will have someplace to go once they sell their house, actually because they've already bought. So, tip the object upside down, look at it from a different angle, and we might discover that we can open up some inventory by thinking differently. How are we doing? We're at 20 minutes. Any questions? Okay. Ponder that. Think about that. Think about the areas, the clients, prospects that you can pursue and say, I know you're worried about finding something else. Let me show you a product. Let me talk about a product that might be helpful to you. Your house isn't going to be on the market forever. It may be a month, 2 tops. If it's more than 2, then you're overpriced in this market. But let's talk about what you need. What do you need to sell? What do you need to buy? How can we do this differently so that you're not putting in a weak offer and losing every single time because your offer is contingent upon the sale of the house? How about we go and help you buy a house through a equity forward type mortgage, and then we sell your house afterward? It's a thought for the day. I hope that it's helpful. I hope that it at least gives you some food to ruminate on there in terms of ideas of how to generate business and how to get inventory on the market, which is not there now. So, thanks for joining. and I'll see you next week.